C-, Brock, for the Seahawks offseason from our friend Sheil Kapadia. Doesn't feel like our friend today. I know you're very upset. Sheil, I would be very guarded in this interview because Brock is...
this is just his love for Pete Carroll.
He's not happy. Brock's not
happy
with you.
This is his bias for Pete. This is just his love affair that he always had with Coach Carroll. And, Coach got Geno. And guess what Geno becomes? He goes from a D- quarterback to an A+, from the 25th to the 10th best quarterback in the game. This is just Sheil and his love for Pete Carroll, the Silver Fox. Is it not, Sheil?
You know, I've said many nice things over the Seahawks over the years. My phone does it. I check my messages frequently. No texts from Brock, Salk, 710. I'm thinking my friends forgot about me. And then I say one thing, reasonable, and let's get him on. So, yeah. Listen, nice to see you guys.
Yes.
Happy to talk it through. It's never good when the radio interview starts with something I said, with the direct quote, but I'm ready for it.
Well, we're controversy mongers.
We were supposed to have Mike McDonald on, and then Dave Pearson hears that we're going to have you on. He knows of that nonsense, and Pearson's like, nope, no Mike McDonald. Go enjoy Sheil in this negative analysis.
Right, so why a C-? A C-? Why a C-?
Yeah, listen, I understand their plan, what they wanted to do offensively, what they wanted to do at the quarterback position. I think it just comes down to what I think is the most likely scenario is different than what maybe John Schneider and the organization thinks is the most likely scenario with Sam Darnold. I look at Sam Darnold as a quarterback who was in a great situation last year with a great play caller, with good offensive tackles, with a number one wide receiver and a very good receiving core, and had a career season. But I like larger samples, and I've seen a different version of Sam Darnold when the circumstances weren't as good. And so now I look at him coming to Seattle with an unknown as an offensive coordinator, I would say, an offensive line that I think projects to still be below average, and one pass catcher that I can really rely on. And I think the most likely scenario is that we don't see the same version of Sam Darnold this year that we saw last year. So that's why I had them at a C-. Like their draft and bullish on their defense, it really comes down to my expectations for their offense.
Let me ask you this about their offseason and that grade. Is that just about its effect on 2025, or is it an overall? Because I think C- is a little low even for 2025. I just think the difference between Geno and Darnold is not that significant. But the problem I have with the C- is that it overlooks. They got more flexibility. They went younger with Darnold by, 7 or 8 years. They get him for less money than they would have had to pay Geno. He is out after a year. If it turns out you love somebody else, either in next year's draft, you also, with the third-round pick, get Jalen Milroe, who might be nothing but might be the next Jalen Hurts. Who knows? I look at sort of the big picture of it and say, all right, maybe they didn't help themselves incredibly for right now, but I think they're in a much better position overall than they were a year ago.
I think they're in a very similar situation. I think the most likely scenario is that they come out of this year, and you're right, the downside on Darnold is not as low as the initial report suggested, because they can get out of this thing in a year. If it doesn't work out, they can move in a different direction. But I don't know exactly where that leaves them. Like I said, I like the draft. I like the dart throw on Jalen Milroe. Maybe he will turn into something. I think when you don't have a quarterback, you want to take as many bites at the apple as possible and see if you can potentially find one. But it's probably more towards this season. I don't think it's not like they were blown away with offers for DK Metcalf and Geno Smith, and it's like, wow, they took those teams to the cleaners with what they got in return. I think it was reasonable, probably pretty even what they got in return. I just, when I look at how this season might go and how it might look like after the year, I think the most likely scenario is they're still going to have a hole at quarterback. They're still going to need to build up the offensive line. They're still going to need to add to the wide receiver room. So I could be wrong. Maybe you have me back in November. You play that clip again and you say, Sheil, look at this. Sam Darnold's got 20 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. The Seahawks are in first place. You're a bozo. Text line lights up. Everyone bozo. Ripping into me. I'm open to that scenario.
You've been in Philadelphia too long if you're saying things like bozo.
Sheil, what's happened to you? I mean, is this just the Philly? Is this what happens? Mm-hmm. Salk went back to Boston for a year, came back to, just tail just tucked between his legs. I'm
sure.
no longer a Boston guy. I thought I was a no. He came back. You've moved to Philly. Have you just become a Philly guy? I mean, do you not remember, Sheil, how this thing was built the first time around? Do you not remember when you were up in the beautiful Pacific Northwest on 80-degree days in the month of late May, watching the way that Pete built this thing and John built it the first time? How'd they build it the first time, Sheil? How'd they do it?
Yeah, they nailed it with 3 consecutive drafts, right? 2010 to 2012. They nailed it with a quarterback on, later in the draft than you typically find quarterbacks of that caliber, and they had a great team.
Philosophically, Sheil, how about philosophically? Did they build it having to throw for 4,000 yards? Did they build it with letting Russ cook? Did they build it with an elite number 1 wide receiver? Or did they build it with a top 5 defense and a run game and a commitment to it? Did they just unapologetically say, I don't care what the rest of the league thinks. We're going to be an elite defense. And we're going to sign DeMarcus Lawrence, and we're going to sign Ernest Jones back, and we're going to trade up and get the freakiest athlete that's left on the board to come in here to mix with Spoon and the rest of the guys. And we were a top 10 defense last year. In the second half of it, when we got our pieces together, we were arguably top 5. And, oh, by the way, we're going to double down, and we're going to run it more than anybody expects us to run it. And we're going to add a run game coordinator. We're going to have an O-line coach. We're going to add a assistant O-line coach that have all been in this system before. We're going to get a great athlete at left guard. We're going to get Abe Lucas back. We're going to be in a lot of 12 personnel, and we are going to run the ball and play great defense. And, oh, by the way, we get to play the AFC South and the NFC South, and Sheil Kapadia is still going to give this offseason a C-.
I love the defense. I said before last season, I thought they had a chance to be a top 5 defense last year. I'm bullish on Mike McDonald. And the clip you didn't play was me saying I think they'll be a top 3 defense this year. I love the draft.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it.
Yeah,
I didn't hear
it. Listen, this is what happens. You know, listen, it's okay. It's okay. What?
Sounds
Even
like
Maury?
Sounds like fake news to me. I never heard that clip. Maura, did you hear that clip? Lyle, anybody?
No.
Anybody hear that clip?
Made up.
I don't know, Richard Sherman.
As a producer, I only feed them the hot take, Sheil. I'm sorry, that's my fault.
I am team content, so I understand it. That's a nice job. That's
Richard,
a great job producing.
I say it? Did Richard Sherman say? Did he say that he wanted Jim Moore fired? Was going to get Jim Moore fired? I don't know. Did Richard even say it? He said he never said it. I don't know, Sheil. Did you really say that?
The defense is going to be really good. I look at that depth chart, DeMarcus Lawrence. I like the signing. Eamon Worry, like you said, I didn't think just terrific athlete. I thought his instincts in terms of zone coverage and in the passing game were excellent. I thought he was going to be a first-round pick. So I look at that defensive depth chart. I really like it. So I'm not saying they're going to stink. I think the defense is going to give them a very high floor. Now, that run game, I mean, is Marshawn Lynch walking through that door? I don't see it as a great run game. And listen, the secret sauce they might not have been throwing it at a high rate. The secret sauce was they had a quarterback who was producing explosive plays and not turning the football over and was a big factor in the run game with his legs. And I don't know that all those they could be, but on paper, I don't see them with this unit right now.
Well, one of the things, we're talking to Sheil Kapadia, our friend, now with the Ringer, and we miss him here in Seattle most of the time.
Philly guy.
I know, Philly guy.
Philly guy.
I like the defense, too. I would love for the defense to be even better. I'm not that worried about the offense. And and I'm not like sold on Darnold or anything. We'll find out. I think you said that pretty well. But, the offense will be okay, I think. To me, the defense has a chance to be truly elite. But I don't know whether they're quite there yet. Would you consider, if you were John Schneider, trading for either Jalen Ramsey or Trey Hendrickson?
I don't think I would. I mean, it obviously depends on what you're being asked in return for those guys. I don't think I would be aggressive making those moves right now. I think with your timeline, Jalen Ramsey is what, 30, over 30 years old. So I don't know that he would make a lot of sense. That you would be playing him, I guess, at outside corner there with the other pieces you have. I don't think I would be too aggressive in making that move. And Trey Hendrickson becomes complicated because not only do you have to give up something to get him, but what does he want to be paid? And now if you're asking him to, if you're going to pay him whatever it's going to be, over $30 million per year, I'm not sure that's a move I would make either. So I wouldn't overthink it with the defense. I think with the players they have, you get a second-year leap from someone like Byron Murphy. You have a plan for some of these rookies that are coming in. I don't feel like they need to make some type of drastic move and give up future draft capital. I would be holding on to to those draft picks and saying, we've got the guys we need in the building right now to make that leap.
I forget that line about ifs and buts, but if Sam Darnold did not have the clunkers at the end of last season, do you think we're having this conversation? You think if he plays well in Detroit, or unfortunately was just a sieve up front, and what was he sacked 9 times in the playoff game in LA? Like, if those go just a little bit differently in those 60-minute affairs, do you think in any way we're having this conversation?
I think he's probably still in Minnesota. It was an 8-day stretch, and it's wild how the NFL works, where an 8-day stretch not only can change the trajectory here of potentially 2 franchises in the Vikings and the Seahawks because he becomes available. It changes, not that Sam Darnold is crying poor, but it certainly changes what he was going to get paid on that next contract, what happened there in those 8 days. But football is a weird game where it's always a small sample. And so 2 games in a 17-game season plus one in the playoffs is going to have an impact on that kind of thing. But yeah, I think if I was thinking about it at the time, I think if they would have gone to at least the NFC Championship, then I don't know how you move on from Sam Darnold and go to J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. So yeah, he probably doesn't become available at that point.
You think Milroe has a shot? We were just talking about Ram. Too many Jalen's, man. I keep confusing all of my Jalen's. They're all over the place, man. But
Ramsey, Sheil Kapadia.
Do you think Jalen Milroe has a shot?
I do. I think he has, certainly the tools are there. And I think when you have, the NFL right now is different than it was 20 years ago, where offensive coaches are willing to take a quarterback like that and say, let's build a fun run game around this guy. I mean, you look at a lot of the best run games around the NFL, they have that quarterback element, whether it's the Bills or the Ravens or the Eagles, or we could name a few other teams. It's kind of hard to build a run game. Now, not hard, but harder than it is when you have a quarterback who can run. And I thought he was one of the most special runners I've seen at quarterback in recent college football history, Jalen Milroe. So obviously the passing thing, it's going to take some time, and we'll see if it ever gets there. But I think you build the floor with the run game, and then you say, all right, he doesn't need to be one of the 5 or 10 best passers in the NFL. He's kind of has to reach a certain level of competency as a passer, where now you have a dual threat guy and you can build some stuff around him.
Maybe more specifically, how far behind Jalen Hurts is he as a passer from when Hurts came into the league? Not necessarily where he's at now.
Yeah, Hurts was an accurate passer. I don't know how much has changed with Jalen Hurts from when he was a college prospect to now. He still doesn't like to throw in the middle of the field. If you can look at stuff and say, all right, he's not turning it loose there where other quarterbacks might attempt that throw. So his kind of keys has been very good runner, throws a beautiful deep ball. Honestly, it reminds me of Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts. When I look at the best version of Jalen Hurts, it is some version of Russell Wilson where he's using his legs, he's accurate downfield, and he's not turning the football over. So I would say Milroe is probably behind that, but from a tools perspective, he's right there, or might even be ahead when you just look at kind of the arm strength and the size and that kind of thing.
So, Sheil, when you're back in November and you're either standing on that podium celebrating, saying, see, suckers, I was right this offseason, or we're just rubbing your face in the Yale mud, right? And we're like, you are so wrong. So how could you possibly see it this way, right? When we come back in November, do you think at that point, and maybe over the course of the 2025 season, who has a better year, Cooper Kupp or DK Metcalf?
Oh, I think DK Metcalf. I mean, Cooper Kupp is entering his age 32 season. Do you know how many wide receivers 32 or older last year had even 300 yards receiving last year? There were 3 of them in the entire NFL. To me, wide receiver is a young man's game, and I would be very cautious with expectations for Cooper Kupp. Listen, Cooper Kupp in his prime, one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen. I hope he has a comeback. This one, I hope I'm wrong, because it would be a lot of fun. But again, when I'm looking at most likely scenario, I would expect, now I don't know who's throwing to DK Metcalf. It might be me. Pittsburgh's 6 hours away. I could get there probably in time for OTAs. So that might have a bearing on the numbers. But I think for this year, And I understand why they moved DK Metcalf, but for this year, I would expect DK Metcalf to have a better year than Cooper Kupp.
You might have a less negative effect on their locker room than Aaron Rodgers would if he shows up there. So that might not.
I would be a great locker room guy. Come on. If nothing else, I would be a great locker room guy.
We thought that, but now you're throwing around terms like bozo. Like, I don't know. Maybe things have gone awry for you. We always love chatting with you, catching up with you. It's nice to see you on video this time for those who are watching on YouTube or on the Seattle Sports app or on the website or whatever. You can see Sheil. He's covered up his beautiful head today with a nice. What kind of hat is that? What do we got? Oh, a Sonics hat.
Listen,
you know what?
see?
I didn't even realize that.
Let it not be said that I don't pander to the audience. I'm pandering to the audience. I'll pander to the station. You know, all the radio hits I do, no one asked me to do video. You guys are ahead of the curve. Morris says, get the camera set up. Yep. I said, wow, I didn't know that this was happening.
You
so
got
this
a nice
is fantastic.
setup. I like the setup. What is that poster? What do we have behind you, just so we know? America's
Team? We got
team?
the Dream Team.
Okay, that's the Dream Team.
We got the Dream Team. Yeah.
I thought you had that old Leonard Nimoy picture that had like all Dr. J. Do you know which picture I mean from the 80s?
Yeah.
I figured that would be something we might
Sheil,
Maybe I should order that.
Sheil, on your way out, very important. This is where you either save or you have totally destroyed this interview. Please tell me you're not wearing that Sonics hat because the OKC Thunder, the original Sonics, clinched their ticket to the NBA Finals. Please tell me that has nothing to do with it, and it's total pandering to Salky and I.
Of course, it is not because of that. It is pandering. It is a show of support for Seattle to once again have a basketball team. Yes. And if I'm being honest, I have to be honest. When you're a bald man, the hat's just an important accessory, Brock. So, I just kind of looked over at the hat rack to my right and said, what goes well with the hoodie here? And, okay, let's pander to the host and the audience a little bit.
Well done. Miss you, man. Good to catch up. The great Sheil Kapadia. You can read him now at The Ringer.